When I decided to go freelance, I made a conscious decision to stop making character art. It's not that I haven't enjoyed painting and drawing people. That's how my entire art hobby started back in the day. I would play video games and then I would imagine what kind of characters I would design for them. That's how I got interested in art as a kid in the first place. But when I started working on video games, I realized the job of doing character designs for a game is not what I thought it would be. When you make a character just for yourself, you get to make every single design choice to reflect the personality or purpose of that character design. This is ideally what character design for a game production should be like too. But character design is not like environment design in games. Nobody would ever come to me and say we need to change the window shape to a building just because they don't like it. Now there definitely is iteration in environments. Layouts get changed and you need to arrange props so that gameplay and visuals work together in tandem to support each other and not fight against one another. But characters specifically trigger a different kind of reaction. Someone could come to my office with, let's say, a burning hatred for the types of shoes that I had designed for a character. Not because they didn't fit the personality, look, or art style of the project, but because they did not like them. Just that. Now I know what you might be thinking. When you make art, you can't possibly please everyone. And you're right, that's exactly the way it is. But in game industry, having a thick skin about that stuff is simply not enough. There are tons of people involved in a production of even a AA game. You might be having this argument with a PR team who are not even developers, a 3D modeler, a producer, and so on. And even all of this is just noise. Because if any of the staff from the publisher sends you an email, and they do, by the way, all the time, that single email is like a joker card that will flip the entire design in a day. Now you actually do need to change the shoes, because as much as you might want to do a good job on the design, you absolutely never want or should do anything that could endanger the funding of the game. That would be reckless because it would endanger the income and job of everyone in the studio, and nobody sane wants to do this. That same email, by the way, might also include a video clip that the publisher saw during the weekend, and they absolutely are convinced that this needs to be incorporated into the design. And you will do it. And I'm not just saying this as a funny joke. This has happened to me multiple times. And this is how it goes, on and on. Your design built around being readable and efficient during hectic gameplay situations and from the game's camera angle that has its own needs, turns this entire design into a corkboard of different ideas that anybody can just pin on based on their needs or likes. At this point, you might be horrified and feel like it's impossible to make anything good under these circumstances. But I'm not saying that this makes it impossible to make good characters. A good character design lies at the Venn diagram intersection of a character's personality and its function in the game. That diagram also includes the publisher's tastes and whoever is directly above you in the line of command when you are making a project. Now this might look bad because how can they all possibly agree on one single detail, right? But here's the trick. Some of these circles can be moved. Any studio is not just a group of people, but a network of relationships. You might not be able to flip the main producer right away, but you may have some chips you can play that aren't important to the design. For example, if you know how the relationships work, you could convince the sound guy that the shoe's material offers interesting possibilities for communicating spatial contrasts, or the art director that this jacket color or material can work with the hue of the lighting that they like. If you move with stealth and efficiency, you can House of Cards yourself into a better position. Now maybe, if you have pulled the right strings, it becomes easier to flip that producer. Congratulations, you have just made enough room in the middle of the Venn diagram for a decent character design to exist. You might feel like an absolute psychopath for pulling it off, but hey, that is the business. After going through this process enough times, I am just going to admit that I lost the fight in me. I knew there was tons of work I couldn't actually do because I just didn't like the person I was becoming. I was getting good at manipulating people and I didn't want to be that person anymore. When you try to aim for this sort of narrow convergence of different players' tastes, you really don't get better at design because after a while it's really just the same designs you're doing over and over. I'm not even going to get into the gender politics here because that's a very real thing that exists and I'm sure that I could make 15 videos out of that if I was interested in that. I'm just going to say this one thing. I once heard a character designer, who was not me by the way, a really talented designer, a person from the PR team came to their desk and right next to me told this designer that they are unhappy with the design, and I am directly quoting here because there's no way I will ever forget this happened next to me. The PR guy said that we don't like this because she looks like someone's mom. I have to sort of unclench my fists when I'm saying this. The specs of that said character stated that she's over 40. Now surely a female character over 40 could be someone's mom, right? I'm not crazy here. You know what? I'm sure that there are plenty of keyboard warriors out there who would disagree, and honestly, I'm not about to battle the entire internet here. I don't regret stepping out of that whole situation, but I do wish that I had kept up with practicing painting people, not as character designs necessarily, but just as vessels to convey different ideas through my art. Now, years later, I think I'm ready to practice that skill again. Not for some commercial purpose, but for me. You might notice that both of these paintings work with analogous colors, and together they work as complementary colors to each other. But did you know each color on the wheel has a different numeric value on Itten's color wheel? For the members of this channel, I sometimes make in-depth art lessons like these, and this new 49-minute massive breakdown of all color theory in one single video is the biggest tutorial that I have ever made in my life, and it's packed with information for anyone wanting to learn color. And I think this is a great way to start because all of the examples have visualizations of what the theory actually means in practice. Membership also includes lessons on spatial design for game environments, shape design lectures, and tons of exclusive content like that. I thought I should bring that up here because despite spending tons of time on these art lessons, I never actually advertised that that stuff actually exists. So if you're serious about learning art, join the channel, like all of that stuff is there. When I'm doing paintings such as these, it's the lessons from that color theory that I refer to, even though it might look like I'm just winging it. Especially in the start of this painting, it looked like just a bunch of blobs, but even still, I'm thinking about the mood and color and where they are on the color wheel. Even though painting people is its own specific skill, I do think my animal characters have a special place in my heart, and I think they're always going to be part of my art somehow. For me, it's easy to project myself in their place, even though we are not even the same species. Now, I don't know what the big takeaway for this video should be. Maybe be aware that there's much more to character design than just drawing clothes. Or maybe the big lesson here is that if you enjoy something, be ever vigilant in maintaining that relationship with that creative act that brings you joy. Now, some of you might think that I'm somehow angry or I hold some kind of a grudge against these people for behaving this way, but I honestly don't think that this situation is the fault of any single individual, but the system is the same for everybody and they are just operating that same way within the system. And for this reason, going forward, I have received some opportunities to work on different game projects and make additional concept art for indie projects. The indie projects to me are always way more creatively interesting, just because any of these dynamics don't happen in those sort of situations. So if you are an art student and you're dreaming of going into a big studio and working on really big games, I would say that don't knock the experience of working in a smaller studio. The pay might be smaller, but you honestly have way more control over what you are doing, and you might enjoy it more. Don't think that just because you are working in a smaller studio, that means that the work is any less fulfilling. I think it might be way more enjoyable when you are working in a smaller team. Money has this way of twisting all the creativity out of art and turn it into this design by committee product that's not upsetting anyone, but at the same time something absolutely nobody could get excited about. Also, you can paint people without doing characters. You can design clothes and have that be your main thing separately as well. Art has infinite amount of options to explore, and I would hate it if you miss out on those opportunities just because some paths aren't good fit for you, especially when it comes to careers in art. I'm going to keep learning to paint people, and maybe someday I'll even learn to paint hands better than AI can paint hands. Not likely, but I'm going to keep trying anyway. I'm Mikko. Please make more art. We need it in these times more than ever before.